So, welcome everyone to our case presentation. We are team 1B and our case is about Toshiba's acquisition of Westinghouse Electric. The table of contents will first start off with a quick introduction, followed by some strategic issues, the application of theory, and managerial implications. So in 2006, Toshiba declared that their firm would become a world standard-setting nuclear reactor maker by acquiring the United States nuclear technology firm Westinghouse Electric. Toshiba paid a premium to acquire Westinghouse, although this is easily explained by the amount of pressure the Japanese Ministry of Economics, Trade and Industry put on Japan to make it into a major nuclear technology exporter. Global warming also emerged as a world issue, and nuclear power appeared to be a promising zero-emission alternative to fossil fuel. Whereas most of you probably know Toshiba from their laptops or televisions, Toshiba now pulled in many reactor orders in the United States and other emerging nations, and it really appeared as if nuclear technology would become the firm's sturdiest and most essential business. Unfortunately, all that began to change in 2011 when the Fukushima nuclear plant melted down, which caused the Fukushima nuclear crisis that continues even today. Followed by that, countries around the world moved up their nuclear safety regulations, and the zero nuclear movement gained tremendous public and political attention, and it was obvious that the business climate for nuclear power was going to change. However, Toshiba did not adjust their strategy. What followed was Westinghouse losing major amounts of money until much later in 2016, when Toshiba's executives finally paid attention to Westinghouse and their problems. To conclude, although they paid a premium to acquire Westinghouse, Toshiba's past management teams then abandoned them, let alone even managing them or supervising them, which resulted in a tremendous blunder, and eventually they filed for bankruptcy in 2017.
Application of the theory. We start with the transaction cost economics, which is split into three subcosts. Williamson is the inventor of the transaction cost economics theory and said transaction costs are the costs of making economic trade, so they take place in the firm as well as in the market. These costs come from bounded reliability as well as bounded rationality. So how can we apply this TCE theory to Toshiba's acquisition of Westinghouse? First, we start with the search and information costs. So Toshiba searched for a company to acquire, providing a boost into the expected lucrative nuclear power market, and they saw great potential here because of a complementary partnership's value to reinforce the ability of entering new business areas, so the combined set of shared resources. Second, increasing sales expectations. They expected 900 billion yen in 2020 compared to their initial 200 billion before. And third, Westinghouse's new AP1000 pressurized water reactor they just invented, and Toshiba expected this reactor to place them in the game in China. But was this really as expected, and what happened? With regards to the pressurized water reactor, we can say that this one received a bunch of criticism in 2011, for example, about its safety regulations. But this couldn't have known before, obviously. Bargaining costs. Toshiba acquired Westinghouse for approximately $5.4 billion. Here, bargaining costs arose from many discussions about the market vision of the acquisition, also the complementary relations, etc. 3. Policing and enforcement costs. Toshiba faced great enthusiasm about making Japan a major nuclear energy exporter, which was based on various reasons. First, the CEO announced ambitious objectives, such as the firm would be contracted to build 33 reactors around the world. Also, the increasing degree of global warming contributed to an expected success of this zero-emission alternative, so this reactor especially. And the tsunami-crippled Fukushima No. 1 nuclear plant melted down, so new nuclear regulations aiming on a zero-nuclear future evolved. However, Toshiba did not expect this and did not adapt it to its strategy. So basically, Toshiba did not monitor Westinghouse properly, and Toshiba did not notice the Westinghouse lost very much money. And this is also supported by the following quote: "Failure to monitor Westinghouse brings Toshiba to the brink," from 2017. Consequently, Toshiba did neither supervise nor manage Westinghouse, which was again underlined by a Westinghouse executive in 2017. Running our company is really easy because Toshiba never gets involved. Toshiba is a cash dispenser. So, what can we conclude? The costs of integrating Westinghouse were quite underestimated, plus the expected benefits from the acquisition were extremely overestimated.
Okay, so the next theory is the agency theory. The characteristics. In our case, Toshiba was a principal and Westinghouse Electric was an agent, as Toshiba acquired Westinghouse Electric. The theory states that there are different interests of the principal and the agent. However, for our case, bounded reliability issue and the inside relationships between managers are the most relevant. One of the theories which might explain why Westinghouse acquisition was a failure can be explained by the Haber's theory, which is engaging into more difficult mergers and acquisitions because management is confident that they can do it, which was most possibly the case for the Toshiba and Westinghouse. And the second one is the empire building theory, which suggests that Toshiba wanted to expand its nuclear activities and investments to grow the size of the empire, which also might lead to the failure of the acquisition. Secondly, we know that in June 2016, Toshiba appointed Mr. Shiga as a chairman, who was the former head of the Westinghouse, and after the huge cost overruns related to the nuclear plants being built by Westinghouse, Mr. Shiga resigned and disappeared from the public. We also know that advisory firm for Toshiba urged shareholders to vote against Mr. Shiga because of his role in Westinghouse. So building on that, it's impossible to know what exactly managers from both companies thought, but we can see that they made a mistake by appointing former head of Westinghouse as a Toshiba chairman. Adding to that, the managers were overconfident about the success of the acquisition, for which an example is that the CEO at the time of acquisition predicted that there will be 10 large nuclear reactors built each year, which basically turned out to be impossible to accomplish. So this concludes the theory section, and now we'll move to the managerial implications.
Part of this presentation, we have some advice for managers based on some articles we found. Firstly, we found an article by Brothers and Hennard, and they stated that asset specificity has a significant relationship with control modes. But we also found some studies that just said the opposite, that this has no relationship. And we think it might be worth for managers to investigate this because well, it's such an important topic. Secondly, is that we found an article by Zhao et al. That said that country risk and cultural distance are the most common variables to calculate external uncertainty, but in this article we found no attempt to test the strength between the external uncertainty and between asset specificity, which is, in our opinion, in our eyes, crucial factor that Williamson describes in transaction cost theory. So it might be worth investigating this. Secondly, I'm in a bit of a rush. I've only got 2 minutes. An advice is that to combine cultures such as Westinghouse and Toshiba, management is a crucial part. It's a necessary part, and management needs to be of very high quality to do this. We found a framework for this by Rotter, De Rotter, and he developed a framework that suggests that successful cultural combination is determined by cultural due diligence, cross-cultural communication, connection, and control. And we think that this might be very helpful for managers to deal with topics like this one. Final part of the advice for managers is that they can deal with agency problems by align incentives by monitoring, or maybe by shareholding an agent. Yeah, we want to thank you very much for your attention. Here are references. We hope you learned something and wish you a very nice day. Bye bye.